We live in a world that tells us to be more, do more, achieve more. But before we chase the next big thing, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly growing or are we just performing? The hardest work we will ever do is the work within. Self-improvement begins with self-reflection. It's easy to point fingers at what's wrong with the world, but real transformation starts when we take a good, hard look at ourselves. What are our blind spots? Where do we need to grow? This isn't about shame, it's about awareness, because once we see it, we can change it. Before we can change anything in our lives, we must first understand ourselves. We cannot fix what we refuse to see, and we cannot grow in the areas we ignore. Self-reflection is not just a practice. It is a necessity for true personal transformation. It is the process of looking inward with honesty, courage, and a willingness to acknowledge both our strengths and our struggles. Without self-reflection, we run the risk of repeating the same mistakes, staying stuck in patterns that no longer serve us, and missing the opportunity to step into the fullness of who we were meant to be. But let's be honest, self-reflection is not always comfortable. It requires us to slow down, to sit with our thoughts, and to ask ourselves tough questions. It means confronting our fears, our failures, and the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. We live in a world that glorifies busyness, that tells us to move fast, to keep achieving, to keep performing. But if we never take the time to pause and reflect, we might find ourselves running in circles instead of moving forward. Growth does not happen in the rush. It happens in the quiet moments when we dare to ask, who am I becoming? The beauty of self-reflection is that it does not shame us. It awakens us. It gives us clarity about where we are and where we need to go. It is not about judging ourselves harshly. It is about understanding ourselves fully. Maybe we realize we've been living on autopilot, making choices based on old habits instead of true intention. Maybe we see that we have been seeking validation in all the wrong places. Or maybe we uncover a strength we never recognized before, something waiting to be cultivated and used for a greater purpose. Whatever we find, self-reflection is the key that unlocks awareness, and awareness is the foundation of change. And let's not forget, self-reflection is not just about looking at the past, it is also about looking forward. It allows us to check in with ourselves and ask, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I making decisions that reflect the person I want to be? Am I growing or am I simply going through the motions? There is power in being honest with yourself. It takes courage to admit when something isn't working, to acknowledge when we've fallen short, and to take responsibility for our actions. But here's the truth. Self-reflection is not about dwelling on our mistakes. It is about learning from them. It is about seeing where we need to heal, where we need to grow, and where we need to let go. It is about extending grace to ourselves, knowing that awareness is the first step, but action is what leads to change. Self-reflection also teaches us to listen to ourselves and to the still, quiet voice that often gets drowned out by the noise of life. It reminds us to slow down and pay attention. When we take time to reflect, we gain wisdom. We learn to trust our instincts. We become more intentional with our time, our energy, and our choices. Instead of being reactive, we become proactive. Instead of letting life happen to us, we step into the role of active participants in our own growth. So how do we begin? We start by making space. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's simply sitting in silence for a few minutes each day. Whatever the method, the goal is the same: to create room for self-awareness, to be honest with ourselves without judgment, to ask questions that challenge us, and most importantly, to use what we learn as a guide for who we want to become. Beloved, if you desire growth, if you want to change your life, start with self-reflection. It is not easy, but it is necessary. It will stretch you, but it will also strengthen you. And in the end, it will lead you to a deeper understanding of yourself, your purpose, and the path you are meant to walk. Let's do the work. One reflection, one moment of honesty, one step of growth at a time. If there's one habit that keeps us stuck, exhausted, and unfulfilled, it's the habit of comparison. We look to the left, we look to the right, and before we know it, we've measured our worth by someone else's success. We've all done it. Scrolling through social media, watching other people's highlight reels, and feeling like we're falling behind. But let me tell you this. Comparison is a distraction, not a measure. It pulls us away from our own journey, blinds us to our own growth, and robs us of the joy that comes from living fully as ourselves. Comparison tricks us into believing that someone else's timeline should be our own. We see someone getting married, landing their dream job, buying a house, or reaching a goal that we've been working toward, and suddenly we feel inadequate. We wonder, why them and not me? What am I doing wrong? But here's the truth. Life is not a race. There is no one-size-fits-all timeline for success, happiness, or fulfillment. Your journey is your own, and it cannot be measured by someone else's milestones. When we compare, we focus on what we lack instead of what we have. We ignore the progress we've made because we're too busy looking at someone else's finish line. But what if, instead of comparing, we celebrated? What if we looked at others' success as proof that good things are possible instead of seeing it as a reminder of what we don't have? When we shift from comparison to gratitude, we open our eyes to the blessings already in our lives. And let's be honest, comparison is often based on incomplete information. We compare our behind-the-scenes struggles to someone else's perfectly curated moments. We don't see the late nights, the failures, the setbacks, the doubts. We only see the polished version, and we assume they have it all together. But no one's journey is as effortless as it seems. Everyone has their battles, their insecurities, and their moments of questioning. The difference is that some people keep going despite them. So how do we break free from the trap of comparison? We start by shifting our focus inward. Instead of asking, how do I measure up to others? We ask, how am I growing compared to who I was yesterday? Instead of chasing someone else's dream, we ask, what do I truly want? Comparison is not just a thief of joy, it is a thief of action. It paralyzes us. It keeps us stuck in self-doubt, wondering if we're good enough, talented enough, worthy enough. But when we let go of comparison, we find freedom. We stop waiting for permission to be great. We stop looking for validation from others. We stop holding ourselves back out of fear that we won't measure up. Instead, we step into our purpose with confidence, knowing that our journey is unfolding exactly as it should. Beloved, you were not created to be a copy of someone else. You were made with unique gifts, talents, and a purpose that is entirely your own. Your value is not found in how you compare to others. It is found in who you are. So today, I challenge you to let go of comparison. Focus on your own growth. Celebrate your own wins. Trust your own timing. And most of all, walk boldly in the knowledge that your journey is enough, just as it is. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not to be better than anyone else. The goal is to be the best version of yourself. And that, my friend, is more than enough. Let's keep growing, let's keep becoming, and let's stop measuring ourselves by anything other than the truth of who we are meant to be. There comes a moment in every journey where we must make a choice. Stay where it feels safe or step into the unknown. Comfort is familiar, predictable, and easy. But growth asks something more from us. It asks us to risk, to stretch, to step forward even when we're uncertain. If we want to become the best version of ourselves, we must learn to choose courage over comfort again and again. Comfort is a beautiful place, but it can also be a trap. It whispers, stay here, it's safe. You don't have to change. And let's be honest, staying in our comfort zone feels good. It's easier to keep doing what we've always done, to avoid challenges, to sidestep the things that make us uncomfortable. But here's the hard truth. Nothing truly meaningful ever happens in the comfort zone. The person you are meant to become is on the other side of fear, on the other side of risk, on the other side of the leap you're afraid to take. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. We often think that courage looks like boldness, confidence, and certainty, but more often than not, courage is quiet. It's taking the first step when you don't know if you'll succeed. It's showing up for yourself even when doubt creeps in. It's deciding that fear will not make your choices for you. The difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's the willingness to do hard things even when they're scary. But let's be honest, choosing courage isn't always easy. There will be moments when fear tells you to turn back, when the path ahead feels too uncertain. Your mind will try to convince you that failure is too risky, that rejection is too painful, that staying small is safer. But beloved, you were not created to live a small life. Playing it safe might protect you from failure, but it will also keep you from success. Avoiding discomfort might keep you from rejection, but it will also keep you from connection. The price of comfort is too high when it costs you your potential. And here's something we don't talk about enough. Courage is often messy. It doesn't always look like a grand, heroic moment. Sometimes courage is speaking up when your voice shakes. Sometimes it's admitting that you don't have it all figured out. Sometimes it's walking away from something that no longer serves you, even when it's painful. Courage is not about never feeling afraid. It's about refusing to let fear be the loudest voice in the room. So how do we become people who choose courage over comfort? We practice. We take small, brave steps. We stop waiting to feel ready and start moving even when we're unsure. We remind ourselves that failure is not final, that mistakes are not the enemy, and that growth is worth the discomfort. Every time you choose courage, you become stronger. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, you expand your capacity to handle the unknown. Beloved, if you are standing at the edge of something new, if you feel the pull to step into a bigger version of yourself, this is your sign. You are made for more than comfort. You are made to grow, to stretch, to step fully into your purpose. But you cannot get there without courage. And the good news? You already have it within you. The same strength that brought you this far will carry you forward. So today I challenge you. Choose courage. Speak up, take the risk, trust yourself, walk boldly in the direction of your growth, even when it feels scary. Because at the end of your life, you won't remember the moments you played it safe. You will remember the times you were brave. And that, beloved, is the life worth living. We live in a world that glorifies the big moments, overnight success, dramatic transformations, instant results. We scroll through stories of people who seem to have it all figured out, and we wonder, how do they do it so fast? But here's what we often miss: the small, consistent steps that got them there. The truth is, real change doesn't happen in one grand leap. It happens in the quiet, daily decisions we make when no one is watching. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when we look at the distance between where we are and where we want to be. The dream feels too big, the goal too far, the process too slow. But lasting transformation is not about making one massive change. It's about making small choices day after day that move us in the right direction. Think about a drop of water on a stone. One drop doesn't make a difference, but over time, with persistence, that water shapes the stone. Deep water drops the stone when someone wants a drop of water, but over time, with persistence, that water shapes the stone. That is the power of consistency. Small steps might not feel significant in the moment, but they build something powerful over time. If you commit to reading 10 pages a day, you'll finish multiple books in a year. If you exercise for just 20 minutes a day, your body will transform over time. If you take a moment each morning to reflect, pray, or write down your thoughts, your mindset will shift. The key is showing up. Not just once, not just when it's easy, but consistently. Growth is not about perfection, it's about persistence. But let's be real, consistency is hard. There will be days when you don't feel like showing up, days when progress feels invisible, when you wonder if your efforts even matter. That's when discipline takes over. Motivation is great, but it's not always reliable. Discipline, however, will carry you through the days when motivation runs dry. And the best part, the more you show up, the easier it becomes. Habits are built in repetition, and with time, the actions that once felt difficult become second nature. We often think that change requires extreme effort, but the secret to transformation is sustainability. If you try to change everything at once, you'll burn out. If you push yourself too hard too fast, you'll quit. But if you commit to small, steady progress, you will see real results. The question is not, how fast can I get there, but rather, how can I make this a way of life? Sustainable change isn't about a sprint. It's about building a foundation that lasts. And here's something we must remember. Small steps don't just change us, they shape our identity. When you start taking daily actions toward your goal, you begin to see yourself differently. If you write every day, you become a writer. If you exercise consistently, you become an athlete. If you practice kindness and gratitude, you become a person of love and joy. Change is not just about what we do, it's about who we are becoming in the process. Beloved, do not despise small beginnings. Do not let impatience rob you of the beauty of slow, steady growth. Trust the process. Keep showing up. Keep taking the small steps even when you don't see immediate results. Because one day you will look back and realize that those tiny efforts, the ones that felt insignificant, were building something far greater than you ever imagined. So today, take one step, just one, and then another, and then another. Because small, consistent steps create big change. And your future self will thank you for every step you take today. Keep going, keep growing, and trust that every small effort is shaping something extraordinary. If there is one truth I've come to learn, it is this. Growth requires both grace and grit. One without the other leaves us unbalanced. Grace allows us to be kind to ourselves in the midst of struggle, while grit gives us the strength to push forward even when the road is difficult. Too often we think we have to choose between the two. We believe we must either be tough and relentless, never showing weakness, or we must be soft and forgiving, never pushing ourselves too hard. But true transformation happens when we embrace both. Grit is what keeps us going when we want to give up. It is the determination to rise again after failure, the discipline to keep showing up even when progress feels slow. Grit is the fire that refuses to be put out, the voice inside us that says, I will not quit. Without grit, we stay stuck. We hesitate, we hold back, we let obstacles defeat us. Grit reminds us that success is not about talent or luck. It is about resilience. It is about continuing when it would be easier to stop. But beloved, grit alone is not enough. If we only focus on pushing harder, striving more, and never allowing ourselves to rest, we burn out. We become harsh with ourselves, believing that if we are not always strong, we are failing. This is where grace comes in. Grace reminds us that we are human. It tells us that mistakes are not the end of the road, that rest is not laziness, and that we are worthy even when we fall short. Grace whispers, you are enough, even as you grow. The problem is that we often extend grace to others while withholding it from ourselves. We tell our friends, you're doing your best, it's okay to struggle, but then we criticize ourselves for every misstep. We offer encouragement to others, but drown in self-doubt when we face challenges. But hear me, if you would not speak to someone you love the way you speak to yourself, it's time to rewrite the narrative. You are worthy of the same kindness you so freely give to others. True strength is found in the balance of these two forces. Grit without grace turns into exhaustion. Grace without grit keeps us stagnant. But together they create unstoppable growth. Grace gives us permission to be imperfect, and grit gives us the power to keep going despite that imperfection. When we walk with both, We learn to fall without staying down, to rest without quitting, and to strive without self-judgment. Think of the most successful, fulfilled people you know. They are not just relentless, they are also compassionate. They push forward, but they also know when to pause. They fight for their dreams, but they do not beat themselves up when things don't go as planned. This is the secret. They have learned that grace and grit are not opposites. They are partners in progress. So how do we cultivate both? We start by paying attention to the way we speak to ourselves. When you struggle, do you respond with encouragement or criticism? When you face a setback, do you give up or do you learn and move forward? Practice holding yourself accountable while also offering yourself compassion. Push yourself to grow, but never at the expense of your well-being. Keep striving, but never forget to rest. Beloved, you are stronger than you think, but you are also more worthy of grace than you realize. You do not have to choose between being tough and being kind to yourself. You need both. So keep going, keep growing, and on the days when grit feels hard to find, let grace carry you through. Because when you walk with both, there is no limit to what you can become.